morning, everybody. I hope you're doing well. Today, we are going to be looking in the Old Testament at one of the minor prophets, and that's where this scripture comes from. We're going to be looking in the book of Habakkuk. It's Habakkuk 1:5. And it says, "Look at the nations and watch and be utterly amazed. For I'm going to do something in your days that you would not even believe, even if you were told." The Amplified reads, "And the Lord replied," this is God speaking, and it says, "Look among the nations and see. Be astonished, wonder, for I am doing something in your days you would not believe if you were told." So I love that. One of the neat things about the book of Habakkuk is it is not directly addressed to God's people. Rather, this book is more of like a dialogue between the prophet and with God. So the book is almost entirely a back and forth conversation in which Habakkuk is really deeply honest with the Lord. And I love that because that's something, number one, that we can do. We can be very honest with him. And we should be. He already knows what it is we are thinking. He already knows what it is we're going to say before words even on our tongue. So, we can have these hard and these deep conversations with the Lord. And I would definitely encourage you to do so. Don't just be the complain, but have the conversation, have the back and forth where you're listening to what it is that he's saying, and you're speaking to him. But I mean, the speaking is good, but also the hearing is so important as well. So if we look around the world today, we just see it doesn't really look too good. If you turn on the news or you read some of the top headlines, it does not look good out there. Turn on social media, it's hard to find good news. And the promise was for the people of that time. Back then, the Babylonians, they arrived in Jerusalem, and that was a shock to Habakkuk. This is what this is all stemming from. He was shocked that they arrived in Jerusalem. And, if we look around today, we're probably shocked by some of the things we're reading or some of the things that we're seeing. It's just, it's messy out there. It's just messy in the world right now. We have a neighbor who lives in the general area. I'm not going to give out too many details. A neighbor that lives in the general area, and they just were in kind of, I don't really know them that well. I actually don't really know them at all. All I know is that it's a messy situation between her and the neighbor that lives next door. And something must have happened. Something must have taken place sometime, recently or maybe many years ago. I'm not quite sure. But they actually spray painted on their house all these different things towards the other neighbor. And it was kind of shocking to see. I didn't understand some of it at first. I'm like, why did you spray paint on your house? I'm like, who is that person? I'm like, it just didn't make any sense. And then they covered that up with with paint, and then some time went by, maybe a month or so, and then there was another one, and it said, "You lying SOB," directed right towards the neighbor. And I'm like, what in the world is going on here? And mind you, the neighbor who's spray painting this, they're in their 80s, like they're much older. But there's some kind of offense, something happened between, the two neighbors where, they felt as though they had to broadcast it to the whole world. And I remember I was going for a bike ride not too long after I saw this. And I was just praying for the neighbors and praying for the neighborhood. And I'm like, Lord, I just want, I said, I want people to know you, I'm like, I just use me however you want to use me, whatever. And he highlighted the neighbor who was spray painting all this nasty stuff on their house. And I'm like, okay, can you pick someone else for that? Because I'm like, I don't want to get in the middle of that. I'm like, I think we said hello in passing once, but I'm like, I don't want to get involved with that. I'm like, that is messy. That is like super, super messy. But I felt the Lord say it starts with one, and that's something with with anything, with revival and with anything going on, it starts with one heart. It starts with one act of obedience. It starts with one action. And so I ended up, I asked the Lord, I'm like, well, what would you like me to do? And he said to send them a card, just with encouraging notes, not to put our name or address on it or anything like that, but just to send them little encouraging cards. So I did, and I've sent out a good handful of them so far. And each one, I just sit and I'm like, Lord, I'm like, speak to me. What do you want to say here? And he'll give me a little something to say or a long something to say, and I just put it in the mail and send it out. And I don't know what that's gonna do. I mean, they did ended up they painted over the, you lying SOB, they painted over that, so that's no longer there. But I'm just believing that, in God's doing something there. And I don't know what it is. I just wanted to do what it is that he had asked me to do. But God's still there in the midst of it. God is still good in the mess of everything. And maybe, they'll know the Lord or rekindle their relationship if they walked with him before. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I just had to do my piece and, the part that the Lord had asked me to do. And that's something I think we just need to remember, that in the midst of fear, in the midst of heartache, in the midst of trials that we are facing, and that we're even facing, corporately as a nation, together we're facing, God's still doing something good. He has not left his throne. He's still sitting on there, still ruling and reigning. He's not sleeping, that's for sure. And there's a plan and a purpose in the midst of this. And, we cannot see what tomorrow brings. We don't even know what, the next 15 minutes is going to bring, really. If you think about it, we don't know, but we can trust the one who does know. And that's so important. We need to be faithful with what it is that he has called us to do, who he has called us to do, and be faithful, as to how he's leading us, whether that's sharing the gospel with somebody, whether it's checking in with your neighbors or sending an anonymous letter like I had done, or if he's asking you to pray for somebody, like we are the light of the world, we are the ones that God has chosen and that God is using, and so we just need to be sensitive and ask him, what's our piece in this? What is it, that you want to do? We can partner with him, and we should partner with him and allow ourselves to be used by him, because we really have no idea the impact of, one little act of obedience can do. So let's believe that he's doing something good in the world, in the midst of this messy life that we're going through right now. He's still doing something good. He is still faithful, and he's asking us to be faithful with the piece that he has us doing. And it may seem insignificant, or we may feel insecure about doing something, like I did with this neighbor. I'm like, who am I? I don't know anything about I don't want to get involved, like I had all my eyes, of what I didn't want to do. You have no idea the impact that's going to make. And, that's one of the beautiful things. We just have to trust the Lord, be obedient on our part, and then trust him that, a small word of encouragement, could shift somebody's entire world, and there's stories out there where that has taken place, or one small act of kindness could definitely shift somebody's entire day. And we all, maybe we've had moments like that where somebody has said something and it's just been very meaningful to us, and, kind of propelled us into the next season, or just kind of broke off stuff as well. So don't ever underestimate God. He is doing something. He is doing something good, and he will use you if you allow him to. So I would encourage you in that today, and just ask him, say, Lord, what is it? What is it you'd like me to do? And listen, because I'm sure he'll tell you some pretty spectacular things that he'll have you do. So I pray you're encouraged. I pray you're blessed, and I hope you're well. And we will see you again tomorrow.